Hello, Dr. Asha Menon. Welcome to Vidcast. Welcome to this podcast. Let's start from the title. You said tame the mind. What exactly do you mean by taming the mind?
So one of the reasons I chose, it was supposed to be initially, I wanted to write about everything under the sun. Like whatever I knew, I wanted to send those messages out there. That was my intention.
Okay.
And out of all these messages, I realized that, the hardest message is to tame the mind. One of the hardest things to do is to tame the mind. But what I was kind of describing is different personalities, different points of view, how we create friction, whether it is regarding romantic love, whether it is intimacy, whether it is any other things, just like corporate life, how those frictions. So everything is a mind game. Everything is a mind play. It's all the tricks are mind plays. And I strongly believe that you're as happy or as unhappy as your thoughts. And what is thoughts? Thoughts come from the mind.
Exactly.
And so that is one of the reasons I used the title Tame the Mind eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because to me, the first reaction I got was, what you use to tame the mind, you have to use the mind against itself. So would that lead to repression? Would that lead to, other problems as my overactive mind was set in motion?
Right. So yes, I mean, what happens is if you are not aware of your thoughts, if you're not aware of what is happening is, like I was just giving an example, like somebody insults you or somebody doesn't respond properly. What happens? You can live with that insult for years and years, right?
Right.
But some people may live with it for a week.
Right.
But some people who know, okay, maybe that person is having a bad day. Maybe that person is not really, informed, or maybe that person has some other problem. So, and then those people within a few hours, everybody is pinched. Everybody will be hurt. There's no way. But the same thing, instead of, keeping it in your mind for years and years, yeah, he spoke to me like that, or she spoke to me like this, and keeping it, isn't it better that you can try and tame your mind somewhere so that at least within 2 hours, you're okay, you're done with it, you move on, realize that the other person comes with a different perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is more a question of from the realization perspective, not exactly from, the mind perspective, because the mind can't fight itself.
No, the mind cannot fight itself. The mind is all over. If you just let it go, it'll be all over the place, right?
Yeah,
and
true.
we'll all probably be, that's just beyond it.
Right.
So the mind, that's how we are born. Our mind is like that because our mind, at least 60,000 thoughts we have. So yeah, so I think, it's important. And my stories are all, actually, I've tried to portray all my stories to revolve against perspectives, against how the mind thinks, again, around, I would say, around how the mind thinks. Why, like some of the stories, like if you look at the possessive husband, that story, why in that story, why does he suspects her all the time, right? So what is it? It's his mind playing a game with him. Okay. It's not that, so those kind of things,
Right. And something just sprang to my mind right now. So is that why sleep is so essential? So that you kind of, otherwise we'll all go nuts if you don't rest the mind?
I think sleep is very essential. Sleep, at least for 7 to 8 hours, is extremely essential. Yeah.
Right.
I
So
think
that
it is.
kind of disengages the mind from itself, I guess.
Right. I mean, we're still having our dreams
and stuff.
Yes. The mind is still very active at the same time, but I think sleep is very, very, very important because that gives you rest, your body, your physical, your mental.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I've heard of this REM sleep and things like that, whether there's a rapid eye movement. So even when a person dreams, actually the mind is still working, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you have various characters in your book, actually. Neil, Sonia, Sylvia, Mark. But you kind of focus more on Neil and Sylvia, at least in the back of your book, you talk about them. So are they your central characters, you would say? Or what would you think?
Yeah, I think Neil is definitely, this book is written also to give men an understanding about how women think. It's
Thank
not
you.
just a...
We need it.
Yeah, I think so, because I don't think men have a forum. Women have a lot of forums, whether it's women's empowerment, whether it is other forums, but men don't. And men don't really talk about things at all.
Right.
So I think my idea with this book was also to give men, I'm surrounded by 3 men. I have 2 boys and a husband.
Okay.
So, so it's not just for them, but, you know, in general, yeah. In general, the idea was also to give men a say, and because they don't discuss their problems. And I've written that book, you know, how they don't discuss their problems. They are kind of, you know, they keep everything to themselves.
Right.
And women, at least we chatter, we complain about our husbands, we complain about our kids, you know. But men, usually, what are your topics? I mean, your topics will be more politics or sports or music or something which is, you know, nothing to do with your mind, nothing to do with what is happening with you, nothing to do with your relationships.
Right.
So that was part of the game. Yeah, part of the, not game, but part of the intention
okay.
of the book.
Yeah. And there's one interesting, I mean, although you don't mention the others so much in the back of your book, but I think each character is very pivotal in the sense. Now, let's go to Julia. Now, Julia, actually, she's attracted to power. She's attracted to the powerful male, the alpha male, so to speak. So, is this a primordial urge of the female to mate with the strongest so that the species are, you know, you get strong offspring? Is that the inherent female psyche?
To a large extent, I think so, you know, but again, to a large extent, yes, absolutely. You know, to meet that kind of an alpha male or something like that. But then there are different kinds of men, which, if you remember,
typically 3 types of men.
Yeah.
3 classes of men, rather.
Yeah, 3 classes of men, which I have described. So, what do women want? I think what they want basically is a decent person in their life, a decent person. You know, that is very important. You know, how people deal with you, or how that man deals with you, or, you know, give you, be at the same level as the man, not to subjugate, not to dominate, you know, those kind of things. And just to let the woman be herself. I think that is what women want. And I don't know if that is what women seek. Whether they get it or not is a different question, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
So do you also, I mean, I'm seeing this purely as a male perspective. I don't know if I'm being, is there also inherent urge to feel protected? So do you think that women kind of give the male the power to at least seem that they're protecting them? Do you think that there is?
I think so. I think there is an inherent need to be protected. I mean, we can all live alone. And yes, we can all live alone. And a lot of females do live alone, and they can take care of themselves. I mean, in today's day and age, you really don't need any financial support. You don't need anything else, but you definitely need that emotional support.
Right.
You know?
So we are always looking for that missing part of ourselves, which we are trying to look into in a mate. Would you say it's fair to say that? To complete the picture?
You know, I don't think we're really looking for something to complete ourselves. I mean, there is a myth, there is a feeling that yes, women are looking or men are looking for something to complete themselves. It's very hard. Every human being comes with multiple layers, you know?
Okay.
It's not just one layer. Like a person may be doing well in certain aspects, but may not be really good in certain other aspects. So I think a human being is a conglomeration of a lot of thoughts, lot of layers. So I don't think we can pinpoint and say, you know, this is what I'm looking for. I'm trying to complete myself. I don't know if that is necessarily the truth. I don't think so.
Okay.
You know? But you might be attracted to somebody who may not be like yourself.
Right. Yeah. Right. Love is overrated.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Love, actually, love is in a relationship. When I say in a relationship, love is important. It may be overrated, but it is very important, because unless you have a certain basic foundation of love in the relationship, those relationships may not exist, or you know, go haywire. But what is more important? You also need to be respected.
Right.
It's not just love. That's what I'm trying to portray in that chapter.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not just love. It is also respect. You know, and I think which is more important is a hard decision. But I think both there has to be a combination of both love and respect for a
because
relationship to work.
You clarify that. You say that love is a byproduct of the respect, actually.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sylvia's reason for getting a divorce from John, he would never clean up after he shaved or he ate. Guilty.
No, but that was not the only reason, that was just not the only reason. He was mean to her. Right. He was putting her down, and he had other women. So there was nothing common. Whatever was common, the initial attraction, and this is what happens in romantic romance, and then when it culminates into marriage, what happens is where the husband John, he was mean. He was a little mean, but she neglected that. In the initial stages, because when you are romantically involved, you kind of don't realize, you kind of worship the other person's every part of that other person is worshipped, so you kind of let go, you see that he's behaving badly towards somebody, but then you let it go, you let it pass. And then when you get married, you realize that all these things he's brought with him, which you actually neglected during the days of courtship, are now in your house, in the four walls of your home. And that's when the friction starts, and also kind of when things start to dwindle, the relationship starts to dwindle because of other reasons.
Right.
So, yeah.
So did you name him John because it's a very common theory? Common.
No, the names the names were very organic. I don't even know why. Yeah. Yeah.
John Doe and Jane Doe.
John Doe and yeah. Could be, that's a nice thought though. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a Freudian slip or anything.
No, I don't think so. I didn't intend it that way. No. I wanted a strong name. I wanted a hard name, Okay. I felt John was like a hard name.
Okay. An orgasm is a man's privilege. Why? I mean, I would think there are a lot of men who love to see happiness in their or satisfaction or a sexual partner and pleasure. So, how would you go to the extent of generalizing it? Is it something that's very common?
No, the meaning. What I meant is with that, it's a man's privilege. Is that it can be a lot of times a hit and miss with women. It can be a lot of times, but for a man, it is. It's the culmination of the act, So it can be a hit and miss, and that's what I meant by, when I said that it is, yeah.
Okay. And narcissism and its associated insecurity. Narcissism is self-love, right? If I understand it in a layman's language, where you look in the mirror for hours and, generally preen before it. And
narcissism is not necessarily just self-love. It could be self-hate too.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because what self-love is good. Self-love, loving yourself is very important, because I have seen people come to me, very beautiful women who come and who come and tell me that I'm too fat, and they're really thin and normal and pretty. And I'm like thinking in my mind, have you seen the mirror? Have you seen yourself? I'm just thinking in my mind,
Right.
So that is where self-love doesn't exist.
Okay.
That's because you don't love yourself. You're not seeing yourself. You're seeing yourself. Maybe somebody told you once upon a time, like, you look terrible, or, look at you, you're fat, or whatever, or it could be just an inborn thinking. Again, that's the mind. The mind is playing tricks. And that's my point. It's your mind which is playing all those games and telling you that this is, this is the situation. Like, this pretty girl comes to me and says, I'm ugly. So what is that? What is that? It is the mind playing games with her due to whatever circumstances. So narcissism is not that. Narcissism is just not that. People have so much of insecurity, actually, and they think that they're pompous. They think they know everything, or they want to behave and they want to show, and nothing is ever enough. So that's an entire different perspective.
Okay. And the Sonia, Neil, when they go for counseling, I felt the counselor kind of gave up quickly. Is that is it because it was heading in that non-reconcilable kind of differences coming up, or Why did the counselor give up that easily?
The counselor was probably not ready to give up that easily, but I think it was Sonia who was not ready. And by the time Neil realizes that, okay, this is not going to work. Right. Eventually, even if we are together, it's really not going to work. Okay. Because it's been the whole relationship has been on the rocks for a long time. Right. Even before Sylvia comes into the picture, the relationship has been on the rocks, and they both are aware of it throughout the book. So it's more that they decide kind of, and then the counselors, what calls it a day, because that's when she decides not to go. Sonia decides not to go to the counselor anymore. Right. Yeah.
And on page 155, you have, you talk about happiness. Wow. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Happiness is being in harmony with oneself, others, and nature. Happiness is the way you've been able to describe, you've been able to, every single thing is fantastic. I mean, I think this is the highlight of the book, if you ask me.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'll keep a note of that.
And Serena, is that a typical Electra complex?
Serena is the girl in the jealousy part, right?
The one who doesn't want to let go of her dad to the stepmom.
Yes. She's jealous, yeah. Yes, to some extent, but I think it was more like a possessiveness and a hate towards the stepmother.
Okay.
And because she, it's more the dislike for another woman coming into their life. She had already lost her one parent. So when another woman comes into their life, I think it's more the jealousy and that aspect, which I'm trying to portray. And a little bit of the Electra Complex too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I know you did show how Neil was getting jealous of Mark, who's going to marry Sylvia. Right. But is jealousy normally predominant in the woman? Am I being stupid in saying this? Like the mother-in-law feeling a little threatened by the daughter-in-law, or the daughter-in-law having a problem with the mother-in-law, fighting over the son kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's like traditionally it's been going on forever, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think, is it more in women? Maybe. I don't have any statistics to prove otherwise or yes, but yes, from whatever we've seen in culturally, and but I think it need not be like that. But I think it's what happens also is when you've been harmed by your mother-in-law in the past. And this is true for all relationships, when you've been harmed by your mother-in-law in the past, you think that, okay, this is my time now. I need that. I need to be the boss here. I need to be this. So it's kind of perpetuates itself. That's the other point. It kind of perpetuates itself unless you step back and say, no, this is my daughter-in-law and I'm going to accept her as my daughter and treat her that way, but you need some kind of involvement to do that, or, so, and that's true of any relationship. It could be true of any relationship. If you've been bullied in the past, when you get the power, and I do have a chapter on that, right? When you get the power, you've been bullied in the past. And when you are in a position of power, what do you want to do? You want to crush everybody else because your past is haunting you and has been haunting you for a long time.
Yeah. Dr. Ann.
Yes, yeah, Dr. Ann Smith, in this book. Yeah.
So you also say that sometimes people who have hurt in the past can use that hurt positively in the sense of helping other people in trouble.
Yes. I mean, definitely there are a lot of positive people in this world, and people who have, you realize when you understand, when your mind sits, you step back, you pause, you may have, listen to different things. Yes, there are people who help other people also if you've gone through, but a lot of people who've gone through pain create pain. I feel pain begets pain, and it kind of perpetuates. And I have written that too, like what is happening in the world, like, in Israel and Palestine and different parts of the world. What is happening? Nobody's sitting back to think that, and this is just, nobody's sitting back to think, what are we doing with our lives? Nobody's sitting back to think, but we are on a constant getting energy. Again, it's just
hamster on a wheel.
Yeah. Exactly. So you're just constantly, and that's true for relationships. That's true for small families, big families, countries, states. It's true, it's just the enmity, the animosity just keeps continuing.
Yeah.
And nobody sits to think.
That's the unfortunate part, right? I mean, if only we could take a step back and think what's going on.
Yeah. And then think, like, how futile is it? Like, eventually we're all going to die, but what are we fighting for so much?
Exactly. I mean, I think, I've heard this ad nauseum, but this COVID business has really thrown a light on all this. The priorities have changed completely. I
Absolutely.
think people are less materialistic now is what I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too, because suddenly you realize that you really don't need a lot. And I wrote this book before COVID, and I'm trying to tell people, you really don't need a lot, hang in there, and for me, it was like also a self-realization through this book. It was not just meant for the people outside to read, it's also for me to understand and connect with my own self. Do you really need all these things? Like, how much do you need? What is it? It was kind of my own realization. It also impacted me. So, why are we running like this? Why are we doing all these things? What is there? Do you need a Ferrari? Do you need, those kind of things? And what is happening is there's so much motivation. Like, every ad you see, oh, you can make $1 million in a month, or you can do this like that. And so those are the things which I'm against, and I just wanted to bring it out to the world and see, this is not where it should go.
Now, about Seema.
Yes.
Is there a person who, this time and age, so naive? Like, in a sense that she goes into a fetal position when she's asked to remove clothes? I mean, with all these movies and everything, people...
I think so. Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
Wow.
Plenty of people. It's not one example, It's not, we haven't reached anywhere. I think that's true everywhere in the world. It's not necessarily, more so maybe in some cultures, yes, where it's been more conservative in that sense. But it's pretty true of a lot of people, I think.
Okay. This is set in India, so I'm guessing it's India.
That particular piece is set in India, yeah.
So,
and that's even more relevant in India, but maybe not today. Today things are getting a little better. But having said that, I think people are affected by this.
So, how have the reactions been so far?
So far, it's been wonderful.
Right.
So far,
you have some great reviews. I saw that.
Yeah.
Last line: behind every successful woman, there's a supportive man. That's very true.
Very true.
Yeah, but then equally, behind every successful man, there's a supportive woman. You would say?
Not necessarily. Men are aggressive. A lot of times, yes, I would say, if the marriage is working well. But you see a lot of successful men out there who don't have a successful woman behind them. Because men, by nature, are not that women are not anymore, are much more ambitious, much more, the male hunter kind of thing. That phenomenon. But it's kind of maybe outdated about that. But having said that, I think you don't have to necessarily have. But for a woman to be successful, I think you need a man. The man in her life has to be supportive.
Right.
Yeah.
Asha, there's a lot of references to credit cards in social media. In fact, I think Sylvia once was giving a presentation about social media when Neil comes and whisks her away. So I thought you were trying to say something about the social media and credit cards and stuff. So what exactly was going on in your mind? What did you plan? What are you trying to tell us?
So social media has become such a necessity, but at the same time a big one of a kind of a devil. In front of us. It's facing us all the time. Social media is really actually creating a lot of problems, a lot of depression, a lot of self-esteem issues. Those are the things, and especially children, even adults. what are we doing with our social media? We are not utilizing, I mean, it's fine. Social media is needed in this time and age, and it's helpful for people, you want to, there's a big network and things like that, if you want to showcase your talent. And, but then there is a lot of constant peer pressure. And
right, you need to get a lot of positive strokes also, right? I mean, your happiness is dependent upon the number of likes you get for a particular post.
Yeah. So I think that's I put that, and that's exactly the point. I mean, every time if you the number of likes, I was off social media the whole time I was preparing for this book. I was off social media completely because that's such a distraction.
It is,
and for me, it is, and I'm not a social media person. But now, of course, I'm forced to be in social media because I have a message to tell, I have a message to convey to people. So that's one of the things. But I think social media in general is, I think, Instagram and the pictures, and I have nothing against, because we have to learn to use it and we should be using it. But I think there has to be a kind of a pause again, to see where are we going with this?
Yeah, and I was actually sickened when I saw this number of posts on Mother's Day. I love my mother and my mother, blah 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 blah. You hear this million violins playing in the background. I mean, it's stupid. And I did put in a line there and said, "What is this PDA for moms all of a sudden? You love your mom. You tell your mom that. Why do you have to tell the world that you love your mom? I mean, that's trivializing the entire emotion is what I felt." And I've got some brickbats and I got some bookcase, but that's part of life, I guess. And consumerism, isn't it? That's the other thing there.
The consumerism and the credit cards and the advertisements. We have been brainwashed, I think, for the last 20, 30 years, with the advent of television in full force, and with the advent of advertisements in full force. Like, this is not a good life. That life over there with the beer in hand and a Hawaii beach, is a good life. Or that kind of thing. So we are constantly, actually, I would say, even humiliated by that, because when you're sitting and working, you don't want somebody on the beach, and then that's the advertisement over there, right? So
you feel like a fool, don't you?
Exactly. So you are constantly, and it's again, our mind is at work. With all these bombardment of advertisements, our mind is also getting usurped, and a child's mind, child, adult, adolescent, anybody, teenagers, adults, everybody is kind of pulled into that thing. So we have to step back, we have to pause, and we have to understand that this is, this is what the media or what advertisements are doing to you, because we've had, obesity has gone through the roof, with all the colas and everything else. So obesity has gone through the roof. Everything, like the drug market has gone through the roof, and cigarettes and whatever. Now cigarettes is not advertised, but I mean those kind of things. Alcoholism.
That's another thing. As far as advertising goes, some of these smart speakers, they're actually eavesdropping on you. So when I've seen this, and it's freaky when you talk about something at home.
Right.
Chances are that you will see that ad coming up on your TV.
Because Google is keeping tab. Right.
So that's about what I could gather from the book. Again, as I told you earlier, those characters are burned into my head. So I'm trying to see it looks to me that each one is an archetype. So when I see people around, I say, "Oh, that's a Neil," and here this is
good. That's good.
So it's worked to that extent. So I'm able to typically look at people and so by some extension you try to this is the outcome of this person. I don't know, that's going to land me in trouble, but anyway, so far it's been working.
That's good, actually. That's good that I'm happy to hear that. Absolutely,
So thanks so much, Asha. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure too, and absolutely, it's wonderful. It was, thank you.